It was a few weeks ago, I made a video where I was trying to explain that when these figureheads on the left say that something is dangerous to our democracy, that something threatens our democracy, what they're really referring to, and it's not even really coded language, it's like a weird euphemism in their little circle. They're referring to their technocracy, their influence-driven oligarchy. When they say Donald Trump and his supporters are a threat to our democracy, they really just say that he incites patriotism, and they call it incitement of violence. When the president made a video saying, go home, we love you, but go home, go in peace, everyone knows that he is trying to calm the situation. He's throwing a wet blanket on embers and telling people, go home in peace. And they said, nah, that means he's inciting violence because of the other things he said in the video, like that the election was stolen, he said, and other things. So you saw Twitter's officially suspended the president. That's not the video that I'm making, though. And I know other people are saying, well, they're just blocking his fundraising. He's really just worried about his voice on Twitter. He only ever wanted to be the Twitter president. They all called him the Twitter president. Now he doesn't have any social media at all. And people have made the point that they want to silence him. They want to, deperson him and, basically not just deplatform him, but socially lynch the guy. I want to make the video and the point that Trump is, for years now, been blocked from blocking people. You remember the court case where Donald Trump had blocked like 9 people. There were 9 people that he had blocked because they were reply guy accounts. They were the critical accounts that continue to spam and bot attack him. Like your own little personal DDoS of a handful of people that just nonstop ridicule and attack and lie and slander. And so whether everything they were saying was true or not, he, as a private individual, had the right to block them. As the then president-elect and then president, the courts determined that he did not have the right to block people. So it first came up in 2018. That was when a case was originally filed. In 2019, the court said that he didn't have the right to block. That was appealed. The appeals court ruled the same way. This is an article from that point. So the reason that I'm bringing this up is Twitter said that they don't want to incite violence, so they blocked the president. But as we're going to see, the government, through the court, has already determined the precedent is the president's Twitter account is an official government channel. And you just had a private company, Twitter. Well, not a private company, but a private company. I mean, it's publicly traded, but a company that is not a U.S. company, it's an international company, just usurped an official government channel of communication. So this says Trump can't block critics from his Twitter account. That's the appeal court ruling. And this is from the New York Times in 2019. So this says President Trump has been violating the Constitution by... Come on, what kind of hyperbole is that? President Trump's been violating the Constitution by blocking people from following his Twitter account because they criticized or mocked him. That was what the court ruled on Tuesday. They ruled that he had to unblock them. The ruling had broader implications for how the First Amendment could have had broader implications for how the First Amendment applies to social media. Because Mr. Trump, see, it's against the President Trump, but Charlie Savage over at the New York Times has no respect, uses Twitter to conduct government business. Because the president does this, he cannot exclude some Americans from reading his posts and engaging in conversations in the replies to them because he does not like their views. A 3-judge panel on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in New York ruled unanimously. Okay, so say that again. Because the president uses Twitter to conduct government business, he can't exclude people from reading his posts. But Twitter can? Back up, folks. This is what the court said. Because Mr. Trump uses Twitter to conduct government business, he cannot exclude some Americans from reading his posts. Twitter has now engaged in blocking all people from engaging in what would be his posts, his speech, his official government business. You hear right now that Congress is trying to impeach the president, that they were trying to go for the 25th Amendment, that Pence wouldn't go for it, and now Pelosi's going for an impeachment on Monday morning. You can look up right now and see that there's a no-fly zone over D.C., that communications have been taken out, that 7,000 troops are on the ground in D.C. to secure the area. Why would private companies like Facebook, Twitter, Amazon be seeking to silence and do end-arounds on alt tech to silence the president from, as court has said for years now, social media is used to conduct government business. This is used to conduct official government business online. Look at 2020 when it was appealed again, because Trump's trying to save these folks. He's saying Twitter is I should be allowed to use Twitter how I see fit. I should be able to block anyone I want. Nope, in 2020 again. A federal appeals court in New York on Monday let stand the previous ruling that prevents President Trump from blocking critical voices from the Twitter account he uses to communicate with the public. So it doesn't even have to be the POTUS account. It can be his personal account. If that is what people see him as using most often to communicate with people, which it is, or was, then he's not allowed to block people from it. And it is not that he's not the person able to block it. It's that the court is ruling very particularly that speech, that communication, that channel of communication is unblockable legally. It is protected constitutional speech because it is communication officially coming from an elected official, the president, going to the public. That is constitutionally protected speech. So here you have the full U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Court denying the Trump administration, revisiting earlier that Trump had violated the First Amendment when he blocked individual Twitter users who were critical of the president. So they're saying he's violating the Constitution to block them. Therefore, the speech and the communication, the channel of communication from me to the president, I should be legally, constitutionally protected in my ability to communicate with the president and his to me. And if that is by using Twitter, Twitter can't block him. If that's by using Facebook, Facebook can't choose to block him. For that reason, when he's a public citizen again, when he's just a normal person, a private citizen again, then they can block him. But when he is an elected official, the court has said you can't block. He can't block them. And oddly enough, they never went as far to say as to whether or not people can block Trump. It's only that Trump can't block them because he's the elected official. What does that say about Twitter then? Can Twitter come in and block Donald Trump's communication to you? Well, it violates our guidelines and standards. Well, that's okay because it doesn't violate the Constitution. And if your standards do not coincide with constitutional law, that's okay. You don't have to operate here then, though. That should be the line drawn in the sand. If a company wants to operate in the U.S., it has to operate by U.S. laws. Period. Other countries do this. You see, when you get a little flag notification saying on Twitter, we've reviewed your tweet and you did not break the laws in Germany. Why do I care about German law? Oh, it's because under this, technocracy, this technocracy that we're going into globally, they want you to abide by other countries' more stringent speech laws. But they will not protect your speech here while it is legally protected in this country, where you're actually making that speech from. Am I making the point yet? The court said, quote, excluding people from an otherwise public forum such as this, Twitter, by blocking those who express views of a critical of a public official is, as we concluded, unconstitutional. I'll say it a little louder for people in the back. Excluding people from an otherwise public forum, like Twitter, by blocking people who express views critical of a public official is unconstitutional. Twitter is not just an official channel of communication for the president. It is his most important channel of communication, the judge concluded, in a decision with implications for how elected officials throughout the country use social media platforms to communicate with constituents. You've seen videos where people make the point that Trump, the outsider, the non-political guy, the guy who had political beliefs and opinions and biases, but was never experienced, was never in the muck. He didn't ever jump in the swamp prior to his run. This guy ran and was successful because of social media. They called him the Twitter president. He's all over Facebook. He was the #1 fundraiser on Facebook in 3 years? 3 years? Donald Trump dominates social media, dominates mainstream news, and without him, they'll all die because it'll all go to alt news and alt tech. What's interesting is that by trying to kill him off in a cesarean method as they have, they're ending up putting all of those knives in their own backs and in their own hearts. And it's sad because we've all invested time into Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all these other main tech companies. But if they're going to block you for expressing views critical of public officials, and they're going to break the law, they're going to do so unconstitutionally, then we have no other choice but to leave them and go to other platforms, other channels. It's sad. But I hope that this point is made. The courts themselves have said Donald Trump's Twitter, and I mean, if you're going to transitively look at this as his Facebook, his Instagram, his Snapchat, anything else, any other social media that the president uses to conduct official government business as he is an elected official, these are protected constitutionally. These channels of speech are constitutionally protected, and you don't hear that on the news. You won't hear that from the left or really the right, and you're not hearing it from the tech companies. You're not hearing it from court. You're not going to hear it from Trump because he can't speak to you. You should be questioning, why is it that Democrat elected officials refuse to speak up and say this is wrong? They will be next. So why is it that they are not speaking up now? There are court precedents that say Twitter from elected officials and Facebook from elected officials. These are official channels of communication from the president or from a senator or from anybody else. To block them is unconstitutional. To block them from the president is unconstitutional. For Twitter to block them is unconstitutional. We ought to have better efficacy locally, state, and federally to go after companies, organizations, and anyone else who does not follow the law of the land. If you operate here in the United States, you must capitulate and follow the law of the United States. If you don't get to operate here. Right? If you have a lemonade stand on the corner and you don't want to do anything for the health department, you don't have a business license, you don't have no permit, you don't pay taxes, but you make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year selling lemonade, no one's just going to say, well, we'll let him operate. He doesn't have to follow the law here in our country, even though he's here. But we allow that for Twitter. We allow that for Facebook. We allow that for these companies. Something's going to give. So let me know what you think in the comments. Follow this channel, America Floats. We are on Rumble. We are on BitChute. We're on Parler. We're on Gab. And we're going to Odyssey. We're moving out. We're expanding. We're branching out. I'm moving out. It's Anthony's song here for America Floats. We're going bigger than just YouTube. Already making money on Rumble. We're moving over to a bunch of other different platforms that you know them all, right? Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble, Parler, and Gab. And we're investing time in those other places. We're not pulling out of YouTube. And we're not pulling out of Twitter. I think I have 4 days left on my suspension. These are the digital battlefields that you do not give up. If you have 10,000 followers left, continue to tweet to them. Trust that if one of those people sees it, it's worth your time. It's worth your time to bolster other people. It's worth your time to try to be optimistic and to fuel people to breathe the life of positivity into one another, because you're not going to get it from a lot of other places. If you go to the Donald.win, or if you go to these other sites where people have been rallying and have been bolstered and have been built up, they're now feeling dejected more than ever. And the average post on the top of the Donald would have like 5,000 or 6,000 upvotes after about a day, and now it's like 1,000, maybe 2,000. People are dropping off because they're sad. They're becoming dejected. I don't even want to see what January's suicide numbers look like. Sincerely, I pray for the country, pray for yourselves, your family, your loved ones, but do something that you know will be beneficial for someone else, and try your best to just, like I said, breathe the positivity, breathe some life into some other people. If you think this sounds crazy, if you think that listening to me sounds insane, If you're like, oh, he should just give up, Trump conceded. No, he didn't. Trump said Biden's going to be inaugurated. No, he said there will be a orderly transition into another administration. Trump has hinted a lot of different ways that he will be the next president again, and that there will be a new administration to boot. And if you doubt that, that's fine. We all have doubts, but you know what? I believe. I have faith. I think you should too. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe to the channels on all the different platforms, and then do whatever else you can do to keep America afloat.